I'm honored and delighted to welcome His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, to the Garden Synagogue and into the heart of our community. Mr. President, your election as leader of the ANC and your elevation to President of the Republic of South Africa is a great victory for freedom and democracy and the hope for a brighter future for us all. Your victory is a rejection of the ghastly attempted state capture for the personal enrichment of a select few. And I use the word attempted because South African society rose up to defend our freedom and the integrity of our institutions. The very first gift that God gave the Jewish people at the birth of our nation was the gift of freedom when He liberated us from Egypt. Freedom is the most important blessing. It is the source of all our other blessings. When a society is truly free, like South Africa, it is ultimately able to overcome great challenges. With freedom, light can overcome darkness, and good can overcome evil. We South Africans used our freedom to fight state capture. An independent judiciary held those in power accountable. The media fearlessly and bravely uncovered corruption, exposing it to the light of public opinion, and relentlessly pursued its perpetrators. Feisty opposition parties and a resilient civil society resisted. Mr. President, we commend you for bravely and resolutely leading the fight against corruption. And heralding a new era for integrity for South Africa. Those who for too long held our country to ransom are now pursued by the law through judicial inquiries, through prosecution and investigation, so that they too will be held accountable. Friends, I want to start by telling you that we have a president who is a true mensch. Mr. President, the Yiddish word mensch. Let me give you an example of what I mean. I'd been up and down with the president to set a time to meet with him. And the night before I was due to travel to a family simcha, I got a personal SMS from the president to ask if we could meet the very next day, which would mean disappointing my family. Nevertheless, I messaged him back immediately to say that I was looking to change my flights and that I'd confirm with him as soon as I'd managed to do so. He messaged me that I should not change my plans. I responded that I would like to do so anyway. And then I got such a fright. He called me personally on my cell phone to say that he insists, those were his words, that I must go ahead with my plans and that he would see me the following week instead. He didn't want to inconvenience me to any extent. I remember saying to him, and this on the phone, I said to him, "But Mr. President, when the president calls, you go." To which he said, "Don't worry," and he would meet with me when I was back in Johannesburg the following week. I was so moved by his humility and his personal call. It is a small example, but it says a lot about our president. We did get to meet soon after I returned, and I brought with me a volume of the Talmud so that we could learn something together. Possibly the first time the Talmud made an appearance in a presidential meeting. I came over to sit next to the president, and we looked inside the Talmud together and looked at a passage which refers to the verse in the Torah which says, "And you shall surely heal." The Talmud says from this verse we learn that the doctor was given permission to heal. Why should a doctor need permission to heal? Surely healing is a mitzvah. The commentators explain that one would have thought that perhaps in healing, a doctor is undoing the will of God, because if God wanted the person to be well, they would be. The Talmud gives us a radical new idea. We are called upon to be partners with God in creation. The doctor works as God's partner to heal the sick. Because there is pain and human suffering in the world, our mission is to collaborate in partnership with God to make this world into a better place. Rosh Hashanah marks the anniversary of the creation of the world. The idea of being God's partners in creation touches on the very essence of the universe and defines our relationship with God in the most radical way. The book of Genesis describes how God said to a world filled with darkness and chaos and void, "Let there be light." And so too, we are called upon to confront the darkness and chaos in this world and to bring light to it. In the same way that God created a world in which human beings could live, so too are we called upon to exercise our creativity and ingenuity to create a world where human civilization and the human spirit can thrive in dignity. Mr. President, we all have a sacred mission to be God's partners in nurturing and building and creating a great country together. It is our sacred task and holy mission. We are all partners with God, and that makes us partners with each other. South Africa faces a legacy of human suffering inflicted by centuries of colonialism and apartheid, and we must partner with God to build a better country for all, to alleviate poverty, to grow the economy, to ease all forms of human suffering, and to ensure that all have the dignity of housing, education, healthcare, safety, and a job. Our partnership is about creating an environment in which the divine soul within all can flourish and thrive, unleashing the awesome genius, creativity, and the full potential of every South African. Mr. President, on this occasion, on this Rosh Hashanah of 5779, on behalf of the South African Jewish community, I would like to pledge our partnership with you in building this country. Mr. President, our sleeves are rolled up and we are ready to work with you. We are here for South Africa, and we are all partners with God and with each other. We as a community have breadth and depth of talent and resources and have already contributed so much to the ongoing development of South Africa. But today we commit to continue the partnership and deepen and broaden it in everything we do. Partnership is how we can turn South Africa around. And this partnership has so much going for it. We South Africans are resourceful, tenacious, warm, good people with a track record of overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds, a history of miraculous turnarounds, and a capacity to solve conflicts peacefully. South Africa has a world-class infrastructure, abundant minerals and other resources, and sophisticated financial, legal, and telecommunication sectors. Much progress has been made over the years. Since 1994, the government has provided housing, electricity, and running water to millions. The South African economy is 4 times bigger in nominal terms than it was in 1994, and double its size since then in real terms. The proportion of people in the LSM 1 to 4 category, which is the lowest income category, has halved since 1994, and the black middle class today is bigger than the white population. But with all these blessings, there comes great challenge. The challenge of an economy tilting towards recession, high unemployment, especially among youth, the challenge of too many people mired in poverty and deprivation. As the Jewish community, we are ready to partner with you on these challenges. We have members of our community who are involved in business, brave entrepreneurs who are helping to create jobs for our society. Growing our economy is crucial for the future well-being of all South Africans. We are proud to have many members of our community who contribute to the great fields of human endeavor, medicine, law, politics, science, technology, and culture. One thing that never ceases to amaze me is the sheer number of humanitarian efforts led by members of the Jewish community. Our contribution to growing the economy and creating jobs and to initiating humanitarian outreach projects is completely disproportionate to our numbers. Our destiny as a community is intertwined with all South Africans. So many of our members of our community have borne the brunt of the slow South African economy and are under tremendous financial pressure. As your partners, Mr. President, we turn to you to direct and lead the South African economy to a new cycle of growth, which we all so desperately need. We will play our role, Mr. President, but all South Africans need an environment and policies which will catalyze robust and sustained economic growth. Mr. President, as our trusted leader and partner, we have a duty to let you know that we also love and cherish the State of Israel. It is part of who we are. Israel is the land that God promised to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And since Joshua entered the land with our ancestors about 3,300 years ago, there's been an unbroken Jewish presence in the land until today. 3 times a day in our prayers, we mention the city of Jerusalem and in our grace after meals, and at every wedding, and at every funeral. Mr. President, we feel privileged that in our day we have seen the re-establishment of Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel. It is the fulfillment of biblical promises, and it is also crucial to the survival of the Jewish people in the world. During the dark days of the Holocaust, the Jews of Europe had nowhere to run and nowhere to turn. Israel is our spiritual heritage, our emotional identity, and our historic destiny. We cannot be separated from it. Mr. President, if I may say, our opposition to the threatened downgrade of the South African embassy in Israel is not based only on our deep relationship with Israel, but on our sincere conviction in the justice of her cause. To accuse Israel of apartheid is a libelous defamation of the Jewish state and an insult to the victims of the real apartheid. It is also based on the deep conviction that it is in South Africa's best interests to form strong ties with the only free democratic country in the entire Middle East, and that it is in South Africa's interest to partner with the robust economy and technology of Israel to create jobs here and alleviate suffering. And it is indeed in the interests of peace and also of Palestinian national aspirations for South Africa to retain an involvement and a relevance. To downgrade is to become irrelevant, and it is to give up on the South African dream of dialogue and discussion. And so, Mr. President, I take this opportunity to say on behalf of the South African Jewish community that we are loyal partners in the noble and holy endeavor to uplift and transform and renew and reinvigorate South Africa, a precious country which has given us all so much. Our mission is to be God's partners in this sacred task. It is the greatest compliment of all that God wants us to be not only his servants, but his partners. That God, who is the King of all kings, immortal and all-powerful, chose us, mere mortals of flesh and blood, to be his partners. It is a compliment which fills us with optimism, because being God's partners in the world means that there is also a promise of a better tomorrow, a promise of creating a better world together, a better country together. To live as God's partners means to live a life of boldness and innovation, of courage and tenacity. It is to live with optimism, to live with the belief that we have within our grasp the power to create a better country today. Mr. President, we are ready to partner with you and with our fellow South Africans in the march towards the truly great South Africa of the future. May God bless your holy endeavors with abundant success for the sake of a beloved country that has cried for too long. May God bless you, Mr. President, and all of us and all South Africans with a good and a sweet year. Shana Tova Umetuka. Mr. President, it is an honor to invite you to address us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Chief Rabbi Dr. Warren Goldstein, distinguished guests. Well, I shouldn't say your guests because this is your home. Shalom. Now, It's a real honor and a privilege to have been invited to come and be part of this special occasion in the Hebrew calendar, the celebration of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. Now, the chief rabbi is absolutely right. He came to my home holding a book in his hand. A beautiful book it was. And I thought that he had come to give me a gift of a book. And I looked at it with great excitement. And then he told me that this is the Talmud. My excitement reached high levels because I have a copy of the Torah in my study, but I don't have a copy of the Talmud. Now, he opened it. We shared a verse that he spoke about, but then he left with the Talmud. And I said to myself, what type of a chief rabbi is this? So, Chief Rabbi, you owe me a book. I embrace this moment, this celebration, as part of our nation's rich tapestry of religious, cultural, and linguistic diversity. It's a real pleasure to be here and to glow in your presence, in the presence of this wonderful building, which the chief rabbi told me was one of the first to be constructed in South Africa, in Cape Town. We should all be proud of this celebration and that it is taking place in conditions of peace, of tolerance and respect for one another in a South Africa that has worked very hard to overcome perhaps what many have regarded as the most intractable problem ever in the world, racism, and apartheid racism for that. Occasions like this remind us as South Africans of the value of diversity and should inspire us to work actively to ensure that all of us truly belong to this beautiful country that we live in. Our Constitution, through its Bill of Rights, explicitly provides for the protection of cultural and religious rights. People who live in countries where they do not enjoy religious rights, when they come here, often say, you are truly fortunate as South Africans to live in a country, in a democracy that respects the religious rights of all its citizens. We are truly fortunate. Within the framework of this most outstanding, well-renowned Constitution, we must remain vigilant against all forms of intolerance, abuse, as well as discrimination. We must excise from our society any manifestation of racism, of any manifestation of sexism, of any manifestation of anti-Semitism. We must respond to anti-Semitism with the same resolve as we respond to any act or statement that seeks to demean any faith, any race, gender, or ethnic group. This celebration presents us with an opportunity to express appreciation for the significant contribution that has been made by the Jewish community to the development of our society. The importance attached by the Jewish community to family, to community life, to faith, to education, to hard work, as well as to being people of the book and to perseverance is admired by many South Africans, and I could say by most South Africans. The contribution of the Jewish community to our society predates the advent of democracy. Our history is punctuated with several examples, both celebrated and unknown, of people of Jewish background who fought against injustice and who fought against the apartheid system. In my own movement, there have been outstanding giants of our struggle who participated with great courage and commitment, together with the oppressed majority in our country, against the apartheid system. And we continue to honor them. We continue to uphold their names and their memories deeply embedded in the hearts and the minds of our people. Some of them even chose to be buried in townships amongst the people who they struggled with, amongst the people they led, and amongst the people who they knew loved them so dearly. That is the extent of how Jewish people have embedded themselves into the fabric of South African life and became part and parcel of it. Even in struggle, even in difficult times, they led from the front, and many of them gave their own lives. People like Ruth First. Today, Jewish South Africans continue to play vital roles in public institutions, in business, civil society at large, in the arts and culture, in technology, as the chief rabbi said, in medicine, in the academia, in law, and many other areas, across a broad spectrum of human endeavor. If you want to find Jewish people, you will find them in every crevice of South African life. South Africa's cultural and religious diversity is one of our enviable attributes that gives us a unique opportunity to learn from one another and to stand by one another, and to be united as a nation as we forge ahead amongst the very difficulties that we may face from time to time. It is important that we share ideas, that we share insights in all areas of human activity, from business, finance, to arts and culture, from science to medicine to politics, as well as human rights. The better future that we all seek depends on our collective ability as South Africans, working with partners abroad to put the nation to work to achieve decent employment for all our people. Our national call to action today is jobs, jobs, and jobs, and jobs. As government, we are hard at work to create an environment in which enterprise can thrive and provide opportunities to the millions of South Africans who are daily confronted by the indignity and the hardship of unemployment and of poverty. we have embarked on an ambitious but necessary program to stimulate both domestic and international investment of $100 billion over the next 5 years. The investment is necessary if we are to expand our productive capacity as a country and generate faster and inclusive growth. Part of this journey is the cultivation of a new generation of entrepreneurial South Africans who are able to establish businesses for themselves and employment for others. Now, the Jewish community is ideally placed to contribute to this effort because many high-standing entrepreneurs in our country who are Jewish have contributed immensely to the creation of great companies in our country. Now, our government is prepared to continue working with the business sector and also with Jewish business leaders in all ways. We want to do so because it is when we strike a partnership between business and government, and yes, together with labor and communities, that we are able to take our country forward together. And in fact, many of the great successes that we have arrived at have been arrived at because we've been able to forge a wonderful partnership with business and government, labor and community. We have taken significant measures to end the scourge of corruption, which steals from the poor and enriches a few. So the chief rabbi is right. The chief rabbi is right in outlining some of the steps that we are taking. The State Capture Commission is the spearhead of a range of interventions that will include the participation of a number of government agencies that we want to strengthen, to probe, and also to make investigations to get to the depth of criminality that has impoverished our society and economy, and that, having done so, we should be able to act against those who are responsible, and that there must be accountability for those who have done wrong against the people of South Africa. We must pledge as a nation that we will never allow our ethical and economic fiber to be undermined by the scale of corruption that we've seen and also malfeasance. We want South Africa to be a country where the rule of law is observed, where there is accountability, where there is also consequence management of anyone who does things wrong against our people. We do this and we say this because we want to build a nation that is based on sound values, a nation where there is integrity, and a nation that is inspired by honest leadership. And in this regard, we stand on the shoulders of iconic leaders of our country who have gone before us, who were ethical, who had integrity, who were truthful, who were honest, and who were committed to nothing else but serving the people of South Africa. I talk of leaders like Nelson Mandela, whose centenary we are celebrating this year, Walter Sisulu, Joe Slovo, Ahmed Kathrada, many others who have come before us and showed us exactly what exemplary, ethical, and honest leadership was all about. We are working with greater purpose also to correct the injustices of the past with a view of unlocking the potential of our people. Apartheid, colonialism had a devastating impact on the majority of people in our country, and all of us are enjoined to work together to undo the legacy that we reaped. And many people say, well, that was 25 years ago almost. You must get on with life. In part, that is true, but we shall never forget what apartheid did to our people. Like, we should never forget what the Holocaust meant to Jewish people in the history of the world. As we work fervently to undo the injustices of the past, we invite all South Africans to actively participate in this wonderful debate that is unfolding in our country on an issue which means so much to the majority of South Africans, the land question. The land reform debate is raging all around us. And in a number of cases, it has inspired a lot of hope amongst the majority of South Africans who were deprived of their land many years ago from colonialism and apartheid. But it has also instilled a lot of fear amongst a number of South Africans who are current owners of property. We want to say that we would like the land reform process to unfold within the framework of our Constitution and to be underpinned by the rule of law, and that it should be implemented in ways that will broaden economic opportunity, but more importantly, it should be implemented in a way to promote social cohesion amongst all South Africans. I've often said that this may seem like an intractable problem, but we have faced intractable problems before, and bringing the end to apartheid was one such intractable problem. The entire world thought that South Africa was going to descend into civil war and that we will be slaughtering one another. We were able, with great leadership, to navigate our way around bringing an end to the nightmare of apartheid. I've often said, and I said it yesterday in the National Council of Provinces, that we have a DNA within us. We've got an inbuilt DNA of being able to resolve intractable problems. And it is this DNA that we should trust and rely on to be able to enable us to resolve what may seem like an intractable problem. And yesterday I gave the example that, many other nations around the world, in order to solve their own problems, have descended into war, into bloodshed, which has consumed the lives of many, many people, in some cases running into millions of people. In order to bring about a change in the political architecture of their country, in order to bring about a sea change in the way that their country was run. And I gave an example of how in the United States in 1776, in their quest to be independent from their colonial master, the United Kingdom, they went to war, fought against each other, and many people were killed. And finally, they were able to achieve a settlement which was a sea change to the way their country was run. Similarly, in 1789, many of us will remember, there was what was called the French Revolution, where they were seeking to achieve freedom, equality, and liberty. The guillotine in Paris killed so many people. They were not able to solve that problem. And as a result, many people were killed. And thereafter, they had a sea change, the way in which their country was run. In 1917, in Russia, there was the Russian Revolution, which consumed many lives. In 1949, in China, many people died as well, as China sought to bring about a new change in the way the country was governed and the way people lived. In 1994, we were able to have our own revolution, but it was a negotiated revolution, which brought about a sea change in the way South Africa was governed, the way we lived, and the way we related to each other. Now, that established a way in which we could solve problems by talking, by collaborating, by negotiating amongst ourselves. And we found a truly South African solution that crafted the constitution that we have today. What many people had dismissed as a hopeless case of our inability to find a solution, we disappointed them, or we astounded them by finding each other and finding a solution to the apartheid nightmare. And we settled. Similarly, another matter, which was an issue that reared its head during the negotiations, the land question, came up. And so you may remember, there were 4 issues that were particularly difficult and problematic during our negotiations process. The first was the issue of language. The second was the issue of education. The third was the issue of the right to strike by workers. And the fourth was the land question. We were able to find solutions for all of them. But the land question, because it was a historic wound, has continued to fester. And this festering wound now needs further attention. It needs to be dressed up, it needs to be sutured, and it needs to be healed permanently. And it is in this regard that we say we will find a solution to this, because we have a DNA built into our system to find solutions to the most intractable and difficult problems. And this is one of those that I have no doubt in my mind we are going to find a solution for. Because we are South Africans, because we are people who were well blessed with the gift of having a Nelson Mandela amongst us, who taught us that the only way to resolve problems is collaboration as well as reconciliation. Parliament currently is busy with this process, and this is where the voices of our people must be heard and where their aspirations must be given effect to. Through the parliamentary process, we are certain that we will arrive at a solution that provides clarity and certainty that is sought by landless South Africans landowners, and investors alike. This is a time for us to focus on the prospect of a more and equal society, one that is more united and more productive. And this provides us with an opportunity where, through the sharing of the land, as the Freedom Charter said, that the land shall be shared amongst those who work it, we can make it a reality. A reality in the sense that we can give effect to the deep quest that many South Africans who do not have land have, and also give assurance to those who have land and say, let us find one another and find a solution to this problem. As it is now, many landowners in South Africa are coming forward and saying, yes, we are prepared to participate in a dialogue. We are prepared to participate in this project so that we can solve this matter once and for all, and they are coming forward with proposals. And this is precisely what this whole debate and process was meant to evoke. And it is bringing forth wonderful suggestions which I'm sure will be taken forward to find a solution. As we grapple with our own challenges, we must continue to play as South Africans. Yes, Chief Rabbi, we must continue to play a constructive role in the quest for peace in the Middle East. This we should do as South Africans. We are clear in our support for the achievement of a Palestinian state alongside the right of the State of Israel to exist in peace and security with its neighbors. This for us is important. We owe the success of our own struggle against apartheid tyranny and our peaceful emergence as a democracy to our determination to find one another as South Africans and to a sustained program of international solidarity. It remains our hope as South Africa that the peoples of Palestine and Israel will work with each other and with the international community to achieve lasting peace, stability, and prosperity. This is what we hope for. And so that it is known, South Africa stands ready to help and participate in a peace process in that part of the world. Yes, Chief Rabbi, the decision that was taken by the governing party about the embassy status is a decision that I'm sure has disturbed many Jewish people in our country. Yes, it is a conference decision. And what I would like to say, let us continue engaging. Let us not walk away from each other. Let us continue engaging and talk even as South Africans and see what role we can jointly play in helping to bring about peace in the Middle East. We must do so because we are all peace-loving people. And what binds us together here is our South Africanness. And that is what should come first to us, that we are South Africans. And yes, you all who are seated here have an affinity and a commitment and a loyalty and a continued bond with the state of Israel. That as South Africans we recognize, we acknowledge, and we applaud you for that, because that is your destiny, but you are South Africans as well at the same time. That is what we must recognize. We must therefore, as we demonstrate our willingness to play this supportive role of supporting the peace process in the Middle East, particularly between Israel and Palestine, we must be concerned about the resurgence of confrontation and conflict in the region and about the grave humanitarian cost of further intransigence. We must be equally appalled by the violation of the rights of any person, whether they are Palestinian or Israeli, whether they are Muslim, Jewish, or Christian. That, as South Africans, should concern us. We must recognize equally the inalienable right of everyone to self-determination and freedom. We still believe that, as was the case with the end of apartheid, peace in the Middle East will be achieved. I still believe that it is possible, and that peace will shine forever as a beacon of hope of humanity, or for humanity. This, I fervently believe, is a hope that all of us should harbor. Many people right now say it's a lost cause, it is an intractable problem. And similarly, many did say the apartheid problem was a lost cause and an intractable one, but we did find solutions for it. So I say, as South Africans, we should continue being hopeful about this. Now, the other important challenge that we face as South Africans is the current status of our own economy. An economy that has shown levels of low growth, and in fact, as they say now, we are in a technical recession. The status of our economy is not pleasing to all of us, and it is in this regard that the government has decided that we will need to take some steps that will inject some more life into the economy of our country, which we should be announcing shortly. But at the same time, what we are focusing on is how we can make South Africa an investable country, how we can address the issues of policy uncertainty, policy consistency, so that we can continue creating a good environment for our economy to grow. And in this regard, Chief Rabbi, we are willing, prepared, and able to work with business leaders from the Jewish community to work together so that we can find ways of creating jobs. I was enormously heartened during our discussions a few weeks ago when you said the Jewish community, through its business leaders, are prepared to come forward to put a number of proposals on the table on how we can further create jobs in our country. That was music in my ears. And I hope, Chief Rabbi, you keep singing like that when you come to see me, because that's precisely the message that I want to hear. The Chief Rabbi has promised that he and I will continue to meet, and he will come with the Talmud, and we will be able to share. Now, I want to advise him that when he next comes, he must come with 2 copies of the Talmud, not 1, because I want to keep the other one. The Chief Rabbi filled me with a great deal of hope when he spoke fervently about the commitment of the Jewish community, the commitment of Jewish business leaders to work with all of us. Now, I felt really lifted, my spirits were lifted in knowing that yes, indeed, which I never doubted, but when he said it, he reconfirmed it, that business leaders in the Jewish community want to work with government. They want to get closer to government and work with us so that we can find ways of navigating our way through the maze of low growth or an economy that is now in technical recession. This we welcome because there's a great deal of wisdom amongst a number of Jewish business leaders and Jewish people, which we would like to mine so that we can improve the returns for our own economy. And this we don't say lightly, because at difficult times, even during Nelson Mandela's days, he was able to have conversations with a number of leaders, and they were able to come forward with good advice. And this time, I would like to do the same as well. As you gather together for prayer and celebration at this special time of year, I encourage you to do so with hope for a better South Africa. Hope inspired not just by words, be it the chief rabbi's words or my own words, but inspired by what we have already achieved. We have already achieved a great deal, and the chief rabbi touched on it. Recently, the Institute of Race Relations released a document which I think they dubbed the Reason to Hope. Reason to Hope. Because they say they released it because as South Africans we have tended to beat ourselves into the ground. We have tended to fill our minds with negativity, thinking that we have failed, thinking that we live in a country that is failing, thinking that nothing is working and we are forever moving backwards. And they say they were bucking the trend that is propagated in the media, in various circles in the country. And they said the statistics, empirical evidence disputes this notion that we are failing, we have failed. And they say if you look very closely at the statistics that are available, and they are the biggest research body in the country in terms of researching our life as South Africans, and they say evidence shows that we have achieved a great deal in the 25 years of our democracy. That is what they say. And they say possibly we are so close to the rock face that we have missed looking at the bigger picture. And they say, if you look at our economy, and the chief rabbi referred to it, has grown 4 times since 1994. But if you look at working people in our country, 1994 there were 8 million people who were employed. Today there are 16 million people who are employed in our economy. The reason that so many people who are unemployed is because our growth has failed to keep up with the growth in our population. Our population has exploded, and we have not been able to provide jobs for the newcomers. But we have been creating jobs consistently on an ongoing basis. Now, that, they say, is reason to be hopeful, because it shows that we have not been moving backwards. We have lifted a lot of people out of poverty. Today, yes, we may seem like a welfare state by providing grants and assistance to 17 million people. Not many countries do so on the African continent. Why are we doing it? We are doing it to curb the ravages of poverty, to give life and dignity to the majority of South Africans is what is enabling many of our people to have a life and to feel hopeful. Is there reason for us to feel hopeful? Yes. I would like to suggest that there is reason that we should feel hopeful. What we are going through now is just a dark patch. What we are doing currently, repositioning our state-owned enterprises that play such a critical role in the economy of our country, must give us hope that we are going into our state-owned enterprises, rooting out corrupt elements, repositioning those state-owned enterprises, and positioning them for a better tomorrow. That is what we should be grateful for, that we are going to the root of corruption. We are going to the places where those who have been involved in malpractices have been and rooting them out. Root, branch, and everything. They are getting out. So I want to end by saying that let's continue to be hopeful. Let us continue to know that a brighter future awaits us, because we are putting everything in place. From a policy point of view, we are addressing the concerns and issues that have been raised by potential investors. From an effectiveness point of view of making government work better, we are addressing that as we speak. Local government, as you've all seen with the Auditor General's report, has been a mess. We are dealing with that level of dysfunctionality. We are dealing with service delivery issues. The good thing is that we know where the problems are. And as we go on, we also know where the skeletons are. We also know where the bodies have been buried. And we are now going right into every closet, cleaning up, repositioning South Africa. I can assure you that South Africa in the next while is going to be in a far better position, much better position, so that what has happened in the recent past will become a distant memory, and its shadow will have receded as we move forward to be the South Africa of Nelson Mandela's dreams, to be the South Africa which will achieve the aspirations that all of us want to see achieved. We owe it to those who came before us, especially Nelson Mandela, to correct everything that has gone wrong in our country and to reposition South Africa and make South Africa work. And I am here to work as hard as I can, as your president, to make this country work. Join me in doing so. Thank you very much.